just haven't met you yet. Oh, I promise you care to give so much more than I get. I just haven't met you yet. So yeah, I just haven't met you yet.
Comes the sun, here comes the sun, I say it's alright. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun.
Please silence all cell phones and pagers for the duration of our program.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Over the past 2 days, 32 teams have been stating their quality case in the International Team Excellence Award process. Today, we'll learn which teams take home the gold, silver, and bronze awards. But first, we need to bring them back together. Teams, are you ready? Members of the audience, are you ready? Let's hear it for these intense participants, the Team Excellence competitors. And now, here are your International Team Excellence Award process finalists. AB InBev, Cervecería y Maltería Quilmes, UNG Team, Quilmes, Buenos Aires, Argentina. Baxter Healthcare Corporation, Bioscience Operational Excellence Team. City Power, Power Core, Smart Meter Field Deployment Quality Team, Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. Colorado Department of Transportation, Oversized, Overweight Process Improvement Team, Denver, Colorado. Continental Guadalajara, Commercial Vehicles, Continuous Improvement Team, Lojomulca de Zuniga, Jalisco, Mexico. General Motors, Global Warranty Parts Analysis Centers, Warren, Michigan. General Motors, Red X Closed Loop Learning Team, Milford, Michigan. Genpact, Corporate Finance, Quality Team, Gurgaon, Haryana, India. Genpact, Revenue Cycle Management, RCM Transformation Team, Gurgaon, Haryana, India. Housing and Development Board, Thinkers Innovation and Quality Circle, Singapore. Humana Right Source RX, Process Improvement Team, Glendale, Arizona. Mallinckrodt Pharmaceuticals, Team Mallinckrodt, St. Louis, Missouri. Max Life Insurance Company Limited, Project Unadi, Gurgaon, Haryana, India. Ministry of Defense, Singapore. Angel Wing, Singapore. National University of Singapore, Law and Order, Singapore. Nokia here, location content. Map content, reship, reduction and delay prevention, Chicago, Illinois. Oshkosh Defense, LVSR leak reduction team, Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Pruxa Real Estate Public Company Limited, QCI team, Bangkok, Thailand. Pruxa Real Estate Public Company Limited, Valuable Engineer Team, Bangkok, Thailand. Ramaya Institute of Management Studies, Research Productivity Team, Bangalore, Karnataka, India. Reliance Industries Limited, Hazira, Process Excellent Team, Surat, Gujarat, India. Reliance Industries Limited, Reliance Quality Excellence Team, Burush, Gujarat, India. SE Blades Limited, a Suzlon Group company, Rotorblade Q Credits, Pune, Maharashtra, India. Singapore Polytechnic, Fine Tuners, Singapore. Telefónica de Argentina, connected on time, Buenos Aires, Ciudad Autónoma de Buenos Aires, Argentina. TELUS, Process Improvement Center of Excellence, Burnaby, British Columbia, Canada. The Boeing Company, Threaded Pin Installation Process Improvement Team, Long Beach, California. The Coca-Cola Company, Water for the Future, a water reuse project, Atlanta, Georgia. Vanguard, Brokerage Corporate Actions, Malvern, Pennsylvania. Vanguard Fund Treasury Services, Malvern, Pennsylvania. Wipro BPO, Quality and Process Excellence Team, New Delhi, India. And finally, from Yangfeng Visteon Automotive Electronics Company Limited, One Team, One Platform, Shanghai, China. Let's hear it for the teams. And now, the people responsible for evaluating the teams, the 2013 International Team Excellence Award Process judges. Here are the exceptional individuals who dedicated countless hours of time to evaluating the teams during the process. Congratulations to every team. We look forward to the announcement of the award recipients in approximately 1 hour. And now to introduce the 2014 ASQ World Conference, Chair of the ASQ Annual Conference Board, Pat Lalonde.
Good morning. Anybody who doesn't have energy stimulating through their body by now is just too tired from last night's party. I don't know. Good job, teams. I hope everyone has enjoyed this morning's sessions and that you're filled with new ideas and energy to bring back with you as you travel home. For the past 3 days, we've had the chance to hear from leading speakers from a wide range of industries and backgrounds, and we've had the opportunity to net with colleagues, friends, and peers from all over the world. We hope that you were able to take full advantage of such wonderful opportunities, and we really hope that you have the opportunity to take what you've learned here and apply it back home. The annual conference board has done a lot this year to bring you a great event, and over the past 3 days, there's been a lot of activity. Whether it's been from the keynotes, the after 5 sessions, the exhibit hall extravaganza, or networking reception last night, there has been a lot of great energy, and as you've seen this morning, still there, and we are not done yet. But before we continue, there are some people I would like to thank. First off, I'd like to thank the members of the annual conference board, the technical program committee, for all their hard work and dedication. I would also like to thank the local committee for their efforts. The site committee chair, Lucas Allen, and his team have done a fantastic job. Could Lucas and the local committee please rise and thank them for everything that they've done? They've had tables at every hotel, all places around the city. Thank you. And lastly, on behalf of the annual conference board, I would like to thank all of you for joining us this year. You are what makes this conference a great event, and we extend a formal invitation to ask you to join us next year on May 5th through the 7th in Dallas, Texas for the 2014 World Conference on Quality Improvement. Thank you again, and I really hope that we see you in Dallas.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podium ASQ Chair-elect Stephen Hacker.
You know, we do have someone else to thank. She said lastly, but this is the lastly thanking. I've known Pat for many, many years, and I will tell you that this conference wouldn't be the conference without Pat's leadership. So thank you, Pat. It makes life easy when you have volunteers, leaders like Pat, the countless hours and all the other volunteers and staff that put time into this conference. And here we are on Wednesday now, the last day of the conference. But don't weep, we have some great things to happen, not the least being the team competition to announce the winners, and the gold and the bronze and the silver, and also a dynamic speaker I'd also say don't weep because we do have Dallas in front of us. We do have Texas, a lone star state of Texas, the country that came into the United States. In fact, I think they'll make me abridge the claim that we have members in 140 countries. Texas already alerted me that we have members in 141 countries, Texas being independent. I hope we see you in Texas. I'm very eager to find out about the International Team Excellence Awards, and I'm energized by all the energy that's showing up in this room already. I've had the opportunity to judge several of those internationally, and I'm always amazed what clever people can do when they put their minds and passions towards getting results. And the stories that you've told already during the conference are just inspiring. But first, we have a joy, a treat, in a dynamic speaker. Sally Hogshead studied the issue of personalities that have an advantage and how you can apply your own distinctive qualities to succeed. In her landmark research, was published in her first book, Fascinate, which has been translated into 14 languages. In 2010, Sally and her team had a breakthrough, the first science-based personality brand measurement. Today, over 120,000 people have taken Fascination Advantage test, including many of you here today. Sally's own fascinating career began immediately after graduating from Duke University when she started as an advertising copyright. By the age of 27, she had opened her first ad agency and already was one of the world's most award-winning creative directors for brands such as Coca-Cola, the Mini Cooper. And her work still hangs in the Smithsonian Museum. Just a few months ago, our speaker today was inducted into the Speaker Hall of Fame, the speaking industry's highest award for professional excellence. In this short video, it'll give you a quick glimpse inside the world of fascination.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sally Hogshead.
Good morning. Raise your hand if you think that you are more fascinating than the average person. Now, raise your hand if you think you're a better driver than the average person. It's amazing how we overestimate ourselves. If you look at this on a bell curve, we all know 50% of people are above average and 50% of people are below average, right? It's basic math. But if you ask people, are you a better driver? 80% will say, yes, I'm a better driver, which of course is impossible. 50% are above average and 50% are below. If you ask them if they're better looking, 60% of people will say, yes, I am better looking than the average person. And if you ask them if they're more intelligent, 90%! 90% of people will say, I am more intelligent than the average person. And I know right now you're saying, oh no, but I really am. And you're here at ASQ. But here's the thing that we can learn from this. we tend to overestimate how good we are at something. But I asked a different question. I did a study of 1,000 people around the country, and I said, are you more fascinating than the average person? And the results were very different, only 39%. So why is it that we're so fast to overestimate our ability to drive, and we so underestimate our ability to fascinate, our ability to communicate, to hold somebody's attention, to earn their trust? I think that's kind of sad. But more to the point today, there has never been a time in which it's more important for you to understand your natural personality advantages. There's never been a greater opportunity for you to increase your quality, to improve your career, to grow your company, than for you to understand the highest and best use of your personality advantages. Raise your hand if that sounds like a pretty great idea. Cool. So there used to be a different way that we would evaluate ourselves. Up until this point, the most important thing for you to know was how you see the world. But today there's a different way of thinking about it. It's not just about how you see the world, it's how does the world see you. Raise your hand if you've done a personality assessment like a Myers-Briggs or a StrengthsFinder, DISC, Colby. Right. These assessments are great. They're built on psychology, and they give you a very useful metric for how you see the world. But as things become more distracted, more competitive, more overwhelming, it's really not any longer about how you see the world, it's how does the world see you. Who cares what your strengths are? What matters is how does your client see those strengths? How does your customer, your coworkers, your manager, your partners, your vendors, your family, how do people see and value those strengths? And when you can start to see how the world sees you, you can become more of who you already are. So today I'm going to show you two critical things. The first thing is why this is a crucial mega trend for you in understanding, not just in communication, but in understanding how you add distinct value. And the second thing we're going to cover is how to apply your personality advantages to improve quality, to get a better outcome. If that sounds like a pretty good idea, say yes. Yes, great. If you have two different people that are seemingly evenly matched, they have the same skill set, the same level of experience, same reputation, but one of them understands how to communicate in a way that is heard and remembered, that people take action upon, this person will always succeed. In a competitive environment, the most fascinating option always wins. And I'll give you an example. In Orlando, there's a ride at Epcot. And when you show up for the ride, you're given a choice. You can either have the green ticket or you can have the orange ticket. And so I said to the guy, well, what's the difference? And he said, well, there are actually two different rides. The orange ticket is the more intense version of the ride. The green ticket is a separate ride. It's for little kids and old people. So guess which one I did? Which one would you do? The orange, exactly. So I took my orange ticket. You literally get an orange ticket and outlines all the awesome things that could happen, like nausea, paralysis, death. And you take your orange ticket and you go into a separate entrance. It's the orange ticket entrance line. And the line is long. The line's about 45 minutes long. And everybody there has dialed in to do the orange ticket version. And you can look over your shoulder at the green ticket version, and it's all the little kids and old people. There's no wait. They're streaming in. But in the orange ticket line, the excitement was starting to grow because there are all these warnings everywhere. And the people from Epcot come around and they say, now listen, it's not too late. You can still do the green ticket version if you want to. And so you really had to commit. And what I was noticing was that there was all this buzz, all this energy that was happening in the orange ticket line. People were taking pictures of their orange ticket and they were uploading it to Facebook. And they were starting to talk to each other. Oh, this ride is great. This is the best ride we've been on all day. I wish this ride was longer. Well, we hadn't even been on the ride yet. So finally, at the end of the line, 45 minutes later, at the end of the line, they handed us a barf bag, which it's the only Disney ride that gives you a barf bag, so you know it's intense. So I did the ride. And the orange ticket ride was good. But I was curious. What did I want to do? I wanted to do the green ticket. So I went back and did the green ticket version of the ride with the little kids and the old people. There was no wait, no posting to Facebook, no buzz, but guess what? Same ride. The green ticket version and the orange ticket version were essentially the same ride. So think about this. One of them was a commodity. One of them was fascinating. And the one that was fascinating, the orange ticket version, got louder buzz, more attention, more communication, more memories, and it could potentially charge a higher price. Now, you are either giving people in your work, you're either giving them a green ticket or you're giving them an orange ticket. If you're giving them a green ticket, you are pure utility. You have to compete on price because you're only selling a rational benefit. But if you give people the orange ticket, if you create an experience, something that's memorable, something that they want to talk about, then you elevate your value without actually changing the product itself. So today, I'm not going to be telling you that you should change your product. In fact, I don't even think you need to spend more on marketing. I don't think you need to do anything differently other than identify what your unique, distinct value is. Because here's where it gets really interesting. Your personality has a green ticket and an orange ticket. The green ticket version of you is when you're just going through the motions. But the orange ticket version of you is when you use the highest and best traits in your personality. And we can measure that. We can measure it and we can use that. You can apply it. You can become more of it. You can become more of who you already are, to become more of your greatest strengths. You don't have to change. You just have to become more of who you already are. The greatest value that you can add is to become more of yourself. And so when we identify this, when you take the Fascination Advantage assessment, this is what we're measuring. We're measuring how do you add distinct value. Your Fascination Advantage is the way in which your personality is most likely to add distinct value. Now, of course, you could add value in many ways. You can be faster, you can be smarter, you can be better. There are many different ways that you can add value, but what we're identifying is what is the way in which you are most likely to add value, so that you can do more of that. Because this is a natural built-in strength that you have now and you've always had based on how the world sees you. The greatest value that you can add is to become more of who you already are and who you've always been. And what I found in my research, by now I've tested 160,000 people. And what I found in looking at people from around the world is that there are very specific patterns. There are specific patterns for how somebody communicates and how the world sees them. Power, passion, mystique, prestige, alarm, rebellion, and trust. And when you understand the traits that people are picking up from you, when you understand that every time you communicate, it's almost like you are radiating a halo. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of the halo effect. Great. The halo effect defines the psychological tendency to draw conclusions about somebody or about something just based on a few specific traits. So when somebody meets you and they only know one or two things about you, they're going to draw a whole range of conclusions. This is how the world sees you. When you first step up to a microphone to do a presentation, when you first leave a voicemail, when you first introduce yourself at a networking event, every single time you communicate, people are taking specific traits and they're drawing conclusions about you. And if you can understand how people are seeing you, then you can apply this. You can strategically understand the effect that you have on other people, your fascination halo effect that's built into your personality. And so when we look at people, when we look at how personalities communicate, what we find is there's no one way to communicate that's better than other ways. There's no one way. But there is a way that's best for you, and this is your primary trigger. Your primary trigger is the way in which you are most likely to be perceived by others. So here's how this assessment works. If you raise your hand if you have done the Fascination Advantage assessment. Okay, great. If you haven't done it, I'm going to give you the code in just a minute, but you're not allowed to tweet the code. That's our deal, right? That would be the rebellion trigger. So other assessments are measuring how you see the world. What this assessment is measuring is flipping it. It's not built on psychology. It's built on branding. So this is measuring what kind of first impression you make with other people. When we looked at your results, I know you love data, right? I know you're just like dying to see what these numbers are. And we are going to show you. I'm actually going to be sending you, my team is going to be sending you an email. So you're going to receive all of this. So you don't need to squint and see it. Here's what I want you to know. We've been watching you. We've been learning about you and studying you to see how are you fascinated? How do you communicate? And what we see when we look at this and we compare you to the aggregate test population of 160,000 people, we found specific patterns. We found ways that you are most likely to succeed, ways that you are most likely to communicate and influence and to persuade. You have in front of you a handout, and the handout shows you the matrix of the 49 archetypes. You don't have to memorize this. You don't have to do flashcards. Tonight on your flight home, there will not be a quiz, but here's what I do want you to know. There is one archetype on this matrix that's you. And when you understand how the world sees you, you become far more powerful and valuable in your career, more powerful to your company, more powerful to your clients and customer, more powerful to your family because you can become more of yourself. So if you have not done the assessment, this is your secret code. howtofascinate.com/discover. Your private code is ASQ13, and we're going to leave it open for an extra 24 hours because I know that some of you were out late last night and you didn't have the opportunity to do the assessment yet. So here's why this is critical. Your attention span used to be 20 minutes long. Today, thanks to the internet, your attention span is about 9 seconds. So think about that, 9 seconds. 9 seconds to make an introduction. This means the person that you're talking to may only give you 9 seconds before their brains involuntarily switch to the next topic. This starts to put a lot of pressure into front-loading your introduction, front-loading the impression that you're making. This halo effect that we were talking about, your fascination halo, becomes an essential part of how you communicate in meetings, in pitches, when introducing yourself in line for coffee outside today. I want you to think about it like this. Imagine that there's a door here, and the door is the attention span of the person that you're talking to. On the other side of the door are all the things you want. The growth, the loyalty, the career success, the corporate success, everything you want is on the other side of this door. But first, you've got to get through the door. And if you knock in the right way, the door opens just a little bit, and that's all you need. You just need to open the door, because then you get over here and you get onto the other side. This is where all the goodie happens. And so today I'm going to teach you how to get through that door. And this is critical, because in a crowded and distracted world, the first 9 seconds are like a gateway. It's a golden window of opportunity to get through. 9 seconds, that's the same attention span as a goldfish. So I want you to think, the next time you're preparing a PowerPoint, the next time you're writing a memo, you're writing it for goldfish. Who finds that a little scary? Raise your hand. I know, me too. When you fascinate somebody, you become most worthy of their attention. They're not thinking about their email stream. They're not thinking about their Facebook status updates. They're not thinking about their next meeting. They're not thinking about what to feed their kids for dinner. They're just thinking about you. And when you create this intense emotional focus, this is when you actually can persuade people. This is when you can build a relationship. When people are totally focused on you and on your message, you can actually start to make a difference because they're not distracted. They're not doubting you. They're not cynical. They're not skeptical. When we think of athletes, when an athlete is fascinated, in the moment, in the flow, what we call that is being in the zone. And when an athlete is in the zone, this is when they have the opportunity to achieve their greatest results. When you are talking to a customer or a prospect, and they're really in the zone, when they're fascinated by you, this is when you can change their opinion. This is when you can change their behavior, their actions. When you're a leader on a team and your team is fascinated by you, that means in those moments when you're communicating, they're not thinking about their phone. They're totally focused on you. And this is one of the peak experiences of humanity. This is the flow where the peak communication happens, when you capture those first 9 seconds. And when we look at the brain in an MRI, it has very specific patterns when it's fascinated. In fact, the brain looks almost like it's falling in love. It lights up. And when the brain is fascinated, it releases chemicals that are almost like infatuation. It's a state of connection. Not cynicism, not skepticism, but connection. So when you fascinate somebody, the stakes are high. Now, we see this happen in marketing all the time. We understand that brands need to fascinate. We understand that advertisers need to fascinate consumers. But what we don't always realize is that we have to be fascinating for people in the sense that we have to use our highest and best advantages to communicate in a way that they care about. So when I look back on my career, these were when I opened up my first advertising agency when I was 27 years old. I was the #1 writer in the country, and I did the launch of the Mini Cooper in the United States. I did global advertising for Coca-Cola, and these are the brands that I worked with early on in my career. And what I found when I studied this is that there are specific patterns for what fascinates consumers. And as I started digging into this more deeply, I did proprietary research. I wanted to understand what exactly is the ROI? What exactly is the return on investment? If a company spends $100 in fascinating its customers, how much is that actually worth? So here's some of the findings. We found that people will pay up to 4 times more for the same utility if they're fascinated by it. In other words, the green ticket and the orange ticket. They'll pay up to 4 times more, even for the exact same product. People are more loyal, they're more likely to buy, they're more likely to buzz in social media, they're more likely to refer, they're more likely to be a repeat customer. I mean, raise your hand if that sounds like pretty great stuff. Yeah. So if you give a woman 2 pairs of sunglasses that are exactly the same, down to the last screw, same plastic, same everything, but one of them has a Chanel logo on it, a woman will pay 4 times more for the pair with the Chanel logo. In other words, that logo quadruples the perceived value of the sunglasses, even though the utility is the exact same. Raise your hand if you buy Morton salt. Most people do. It's #1 selling salt. Guess what? We pay 187% more for Morton salt than regular salt, even though on the molecular level, it's literally the same salt as generic, but we pay 187% more. At Halloween, raise your hand if you've got kids. Does anybody else have this thing happen where, Halloween doesn't come until October, but the kids start thinking about their costume like in August? And so this was all the rage. My kids wanted to go dressed as the UPS sales guy, which I thought was pretty awesome that UPS had managed to convince little kids that uncomfortable brown polyester was actually cooler than a Darth Vader outfit. But what's really amazing about this from a case study perspective is that parents are paying $39.99 to dress their kids up as the employees of a company. Would people pay $39.99 to dress their kids up as the employees of your company? That's brand equity. So when we look why do we do this? It almost seems irrational. Well, it's actually very predictable. We can predict what people are going to pay attention to. You can predict it. You can control it. You actually have a control panel. And you can predict how people are going to respond to your messages. Now, when I describe messages, I'm not talking about advertising. I'm really talking about when you need to persuade, when you have to write an email to your team to get everybody to participate, when you're trying to pitch a client to get them to increase their budget or get them to stay with you instead of going to your competitor. And so you have these 7 different options, these 7 different tools. I call them triggers. They're instruments. Think of it almost like a set of golf clubs. Now, if you were, I don't play golf. Raise your hand if you play golf. Okay, so just go with me on this metaphor. If you, the guy in the front row is like, yeah, okay. So if you have 7 different clubs, you could use any club at any point in the game, right? But of course, there are going to be certain times where different ones are more effective. So you wouldn't start off your round of golf with a putter. You wouldn't finish it with a driver. I mean, you could, but it wouldn't be your most effective. And so when you think about this in the same way, you could use any of the 7 triggers. But there's one that's going to be most effective for you. This is going to be the way in which you naturally communicate. It's when you're in the flow, when you're in the zone. You know those moments in your job when it almost feels effortless. It's like time seems to speed up and you're in the moment. You're really enjoying it. It's very gratifying, this feeling of flow. This is what it is when you're using your primary trigger. Your primary trigger is the one that you're most persuasive in. Your secondary trigger tells you how to use your primary trigger. And then you have a third trigger. This is your dormant trigger. Your dormant trigger is the one that you're least likely to use. And when you're at work and you have to use your dormant trigger, you just hate it. You hate it. It's like you dread it. You don't want to get out of bed when you have to use your dormant trigger. And I'll explain why in just a minute. So there's one of these 7 that's yours. It's your primary trigger. You want to hear about them? Okay, cool. If power is your primary trigger, you're a leader who makes decisions. You're an authority and you're in control. If passion is your primary trigger, you naturally connect. You like to be able to build relationships. It's very easy and fast for you to connect with other people. You like to communicate. You like to communicate in person. And the value that you bring with a primary passion trigger, if passion is your primary trigger, this means that you should be in front of people, connecting, building relationships, because it's what you do with great enthusiasm. And so when you come into work in the morning, you might say, how are you doing? How was your weekend? Exclamation point, smiley face. Now, this is very different than if mystique is your primary trigger. Personalities with mystique are very rational. They're linear, they're logical. They love to solve problems. They can take a huge amount of data and sort through it, almost like playing chess. They can think through the problems into the conclusions and into the outcomes. And they're very different, though, than a passion personality. Imagine we're in an office, and on one side of the table we have a passion personality, and over here we have a mystique personality. For the mystique personality, the whole passion thing feels like a little much. You know, it feels kind of like fuss, drama. But that's because the strength of a mystique personality is to solve rational problems. Now, on the other hand, for the passion personality comes in and they want to be able to connect. So in a way, they sort of look at the mystique personality and they say, why don't you tell me you love me anymore? And the mystique personality, in a way, is saying, I told you I loved you last year, and if that changes, I'll let you know. You see how this works, right? Raise your hand if you identify this in other areas of your life. Yes. The next thing my company is going to be doing is getting into romance and love. So stay tuned, because we're going to figure out that whole passion mystique thing in a little bit. If you have prestige as your primary trigger, this means you're an overachiever. You raise standards. You like to be able to focus on how do we make it better, better, better. And so you give your team a result and you push them to the next level. If alarm is your primary trigger, you're great at details. You're great at being able to see how do you watch every single little bit of meticulous nuance of the environment. When I hire, I don't hire based on a resume. I hire based on the results of my assessment. I only hire for 3 triggers: trust, alarm, mystique. And the reason why I hire for those 3 triggers is because I have a primary passion personality. If you take 2 passion personalities, they're going to have a great time. They're going to have fun, high five, yeah. They're not actually going to get anything done. For that, you need trust, alarm, mystique. Those are people who know how to execute and implement. When we go in and we do training with companies like Qualcomm, Intel, AT&T, GE, Cisco, when we go into companies, especially with very technical teams, we separate people according to their triggers. And so we have the alarm team here, and the passion team here, and the power team here. And the passion team is always, we give everybody the same problem. And the passion team is always, they love it, they make noise, they're excited, they're jumping up and down, they're writing on the board, but then they never come to a conclusion. They're having a great time, but nothing gets done. Then the alarm team, usually somewhere along the way, they raise their hand and they say, how much time do we have left? What are the rules here? And then the power team is usually, you can see the people kind of jockeying for a position, because everybody's a natural leader. So these are sort of the alpha dogs, and so nobody really knows how to create a team structure. It's very predictable how this works in your teams when you understand your own primary trigger and that of your team. So a rebellion personality, raise your hand if you have a rebellion as a primary or secondary. My secondary is rebellion. Rebellion personalities are great at being innovative. If you give a personality with primary or secondary trigger a problem, they're not going to look at it in terms of the status quo. They're going to say, well, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. They love to be able to explore. So in the training example I was giving you a minute ago, when we have groups of people with a primary rebellion trigger, they'll take the problem and then they'll go on to the next problem and the next one. They've got candy wrappers everywhere and they're kind of, messy. They're creating all of this energy around how can they evolve the situation? How can they make things different? And this is critical in organizations with innovation. Now that's different than the trust trigger. The trust trigger is about looking backwards to see where have you been before. The rebellion trigger is about where could you go. So trust personalities like stability, reliability. They want things to be on a schedule. They like their day to start the same way. They don't really like surprises. They want to know where things are headed. And this creates patterns. Row, row, row your boat. See, we like patterns. We like going back and forth. But the problem with trust is that trust very quickly can become predictable. And predictability turns into boredom. So the question is, how can you start to inject different triggers in? There are 7 different triggers. So 7 different ways that you can improve quality. 7 different ways that you can improve results and outcomes. There's no one right way, but there is a way that you are most likely to do it. Power pushes out. Passion brings in. Mystique takes a step back. Prestige elevates. Alarm keeps safe. Rebellion changes direction. Trust binds tightly. You're using these triggers every day, every time you communicate. With my kids, my daughter Azalea is 9, and she hates green vegetables. Doesn't matter what the green vegetable is. And trying to get Azalea to eat green vegetables is a much more difficult persuasion challenge than anything I ever had with any of my customers or clients. Have you ever had this happen? Trying to convince your kids to eat something? So if I was going to use the power trigger to get Azalea to eat broccoli, I would say, eat your broccoli now. If I was going to use the passion trigger, I would take the broccoli, I'd put some cheese sauce on it, I'd chop it up, I'd say, let's eat the broccoli. If I was going to use Mystique, I'd want to make her curious. So I'd say, Azalea, I have a great game, but I'm not going to tell you what it is until you eat the broccoli. You see how this is going, right? You're already using these. You already have these different techniques. With Prestige, I'd give her a goal. With Prestige, I would say, I would take her and her brother, and I would say, who's going to be the broccoli eating champion? With Alarm, I would say, if you don't eat broccoli, you don't get dessert. So you're already using these at different points in the day. You use them with your coworkers. I'm not showing you something you're not already doing. I'm just giving you a name so you can do it with intention, so you can have more predictable results, so that you can have specific outcomes. So the next time you have to have a difficult conversation in the office, the next time that you need to reach out to a prospect, now you can really start to think, well, what's the outcome that I want? And which trigger am I most naturally using so that you can use more of it? Remember, there are these 7 different ways, these 7 different forms of communication that radiate off of you like a halo. When we were doing our latest round of research, we were studying introductions and how introductions happen. And one of the things that we found is that 90% of introductions fail. 90% of introductions fail to lead to any kind of a real relationship or even any further interaction. And what we found is that the problem is that we're still communicating as though we have the same choreography as we did 100 years ago. We still behave as though people have a 20-minute attention span, when in reality they have a 9-second attention span. So what can you say that's going to be most compelling in those first few moments to deliver specific value? We found that there are 3 components of a successful introduction. I'm going to tell you what those 3 components are in a little bit, but first I want you to understand why this is so crucial and why this is such a huge opportunity for you. When I was studying how do you win in this moment, how do you win in this first 9 seconds, what we found is that there's this window of opportunity that you have when you first meet somebody that will never be replicated. It's a golden window of opportunity. And one of the people that I studied, an untraditional expert that I studied, was a world championship poker player. We had $1 million pots in Vegas. And I said, how do you win? How do you win at this game? And he said to me, at the highest level of play, poker is not about the cards. It's not about luck. And it's not even about skill. He said poker at the highest level of play is understanding the cues that you're unconsciously giving out and understanding how to read the cues of the person across the table. And that if you can understand how that person is reading you, and you can understand how to pick up on the signals that that person is exuding, in other words, their halo effect, then you have a far higher likelihood of understanding what they want and what they have and what they're willing to do. So in the same way, in the workplace, if you understand how your coworkers see you, and you understand what other people want, and you can pick up on the cues that they're giving you, then you have a much better chance of winning, a much better chance of building a relationship, building a team, building a better product. So now I'm going to teach you. I want to teach you how to use that. Does that sound good? Okay, cool. So you have in front of you a handout. That's the matrix of the 49 archetypes. Now we know there's 7 different ways to add value. I want to give you some insight into this so you can use this matrix almost like a roadmap. So we know that there are 7 triggers, and initially when I began studying this about 10 years ago, I always knew that the primary trigger defined the personality, but what I didn't realize is that the secondary trigger is actually much more important than I initially realized. So the primary trigger is the horizontal bar. The secondary trigger is the vertical bar, and when these come together, this is when we start to understand who somebody is and how they're most likely to succeed. Now, your archetype, when you look at your archetype, you have 3 adjectives that define it. Those 3 adjectives are your distinct value. This is the way the world is most likely to see you, and the more that you can become this, the more that you can amplify this, to hone this and perfect this, the more that you can deliver this, the more you'll effortlessly succeed to win the moment. Now, I know a lot of you, hundreds of you, by this point, thousands of you, I bet, have done the assessment. So raise your hand if you've done the assessment, and you'll stand up to tell me what your triggers are. And this is going to be really good. If you have any coworkers or managers in the office, I'm going to make you look really, really good. So raise your hand if you want to tell me what your triggers are. Hi, sir. Can I ask you to stand up? First of all, let's give him a round of applause for going first. Hi. What's your name? Daniel. Daniel, what's your primary and your secondary trigger?
Primary is alarm, secondary is mystique.
Alarm and mystique. So Daniel, you are the inspector. It's excellent to meet an inspector. You and I are a perfect combination. So Daniel is focused. Daniel knows how to solve really complicated problems. If you're in an environment that's chaotic and difficult with an uncertain outcome, Daniel's going to stay totally focused on making sure that things are executed flawlessly. But he has a secondary mystique trigger. Remember, he's not going to get involved in the drama. He's going to stay totally focused. So you'll be able to find Daniel's architect. He's very skillful. He's intellectually precise. The highest and best use of you, Daniel, is for people to give you very complex problems because you love the information, right? And you love to be able to figure out how do you take complicated information and then find the right answer and put it together. Yes? Yes. Great. Let's give Daniel a round of applause. Now, I'm a catalyst. The catalyst has a primary passion trigger, secondary rebellion trigger. Catalysts are not good at being Daniel's archetype, the inspector. Daniel's great at taking a problem and going like this. A catalyst not only is not good at that, catalysts should never be allowed anywhere near that. Catalysts do this. So catalysts open up and inspectors go in. Now, there's not one that's better than the other, but if you have a problem in which you need somebody to brainstorm, call a catalyst. The 3 defining characteristics of a catalyst are going, experimental, and out of the box. When you look at an inspector, though, they don't want to brainstorm. They want to find the right answer. So when you're creating a team, it's important for you to understand the different personalities on the team so you can get people operating at their highest and best, doing what they naturally do. So that's why Daniel and I would work extremely well together, even though I'd probably drive him crazy. So this is the average results of the 160,000 people that we've assessed. Now you want to see you? Okay, here's you. Wow, check this out. Let's go back. Okay, one of my favorite things about your results is not only that you score higher in certain categories, you just score higher. You're just that much more fascinating. Watch this. So let's go back. I want you to look at the primary trust. Look at the primary trust, which is all the way over on the other side. Here's the average, and now look at you on trust. You scored incredibly high on trust. You over-indexed almost double the average population. Now here's what this looks like. If we look at this in a pie chart, look how high you score on trust and passion and prestige. And when we look at this, this is taking the same chart that you have in front of you. I know you guys love numbers, so I want to make sure you have lots of good, juicy numbers. Raise your hand if you're actually more of a visual person than a numbers person. Great. So for us, I have dots. Now here's what's really cool when we start to look at your results. And this is very statistically significant. There are certain boxes that I'm going to be showing you. There are certain places where you have a bumper crop of personalities. You have more maestros that per capita than almost any group we've ever studied. So let's take a look at what that means. When you have a primary, this is your number one archetype, is the maestro. The maestro uses, did I just hear a woohoo? If you're a maestro, give me a woohoo. Now, here's a little insight. Your archetype has a primary and a secondary, but your archetype also has a twin. The twin of your archetype is the same two triggers, just in opposite order. So the twin of the maestro is the victor. And I'll show you what that means in just a minute. Okay, so 8.3% of you are the maestro. In other words, out of 49 archetypes, 8.3% of you are one of them. Ambitious, admired, focused. The maestro is a classic leader. They stand in front of the room, they have primary power trigger, they have authority, they have control. Remember, power pushes with leadership and raises with prestige. But here's where it starts to get really interesting, is that your secondary trigger, your second most common archetype, is the victor. So you have 7.2% of you. So almost 16% of you, out of 49 archetypes, almost 16% of you are two of them. That's very telling. So the victor is an achiever. They're respected, competitive, and results-oriented. The victor wants to find the answer that's going to improve things. So victor is very hunt the deer, hunt the deer. They're really good. If there's a situation of adversity or a competitive environment, they're really good at figuring out how do they raise standards to get to the next level. Now, your third most common is the vault. The vault is analytical, discrete, and understated. Let's do an experiment. If you're a vault, give me a woohoo. Okay, did you hear how maestros are woohoo and how vaults are woohoo? Did you notice that? Vaults, I think you can do better. Give me a woohoo. Okay, good. So the way the world sees the vault is they're great at being able to think through long-term, difficult problems that require a lot of intellectual horsepower. They don't really like to open up and give everything away immediately. But once they open up to you, they have incredibly high-quality mechanics, what they can accomplish with their minds. Your third most common is the good citizen. I love working with good citizens. They're stable. They're conscientious, they're preventative, they see where things are going, they know exactly how to fix things. I actively hire. Remember, I hire for 3 triggers: alarm, trust, mystique, because that's what optimizes me as a leader. You'll have different triggers that optimize for you. For me, the good citizen is exactly what I love. My executive assistant, Kristen, is a good citizen. And she was hired because she's a good citizen, because I knew that because she's conscientious, modest, and preventative, that she was going to be the perfect complement to me, because she does really amazing things like sending out invoices. Can you imagine? So back to you. These are your top 4 archetypes. Rebellion was your lowest, the one that you're least likely to use. But what that means is that if you have rebellion as your primary or secondary trigger, that you have a strength that not everybody here has. That makes it more rare. And in many situations, that makes it more valuable because you're going to be able to bring innovation into a process that would otherwise stay exactly the same. And in a changing world, quality is oftentimes directly related to innovation. Even if it's incremental innovation, we need to change in order to not just keep up with the world, but to stay ahead of the curve. But I'm sure you knew that. You're 11% more likely than the average population to have passion as a primary trigger. But you're 90% more likely than the average population. That means almost double the average population to have trust. Now, this makes sense. What conference are we at? Exactly. So when we look at the calling here, ASQ is for people passionate about improvement. ASQ is the global knowledge network that links the best ideas, tools, and experts. We're all familiar with this, of course, but let's take a look at it more closely. If we begin to take this and we correlate it with your triggers, here's what we find. So these are your primary triggers. Let's start to take a look at how this interweaves with the organization. Remember, your top 3 triggers are passion, prestige, and trust, right? These are the ones that you score highest on. Well, if we compare that with ASQ's mission, for people passionate about improvement. So you can see here it's about, come on. Here it's, see, this is where I need somebody who's technical and focused. So Daniel, if I have any more problems with my slides, you'll help me, right? Okay, good. So if we look at passionate, well, this one's easy. The passion trigger is about passion. So it's about people who are passionate. So this isn't just going through the motions. This isn't being the green ticket about improvement. You're here because this is really important to you, and you're not just going to talk about it, you're actually going to take action on it. You're going to come here, you're going to study, you're going to learn, you're going to get involved, you're going to network, you're going to learn about best practices, you're going to learn about how you can refine this in your own career and how you can apply this with your companies. That's what passion looks like. Even if you don't have passion as a primary trigger, you can still feel very strongly about something so that your actions make a difference. Now, if we look about improvement, remember, is the prestige trigger. Improvement is about setting a better standard, raising results, not being satisfied with the status quo. A global knowledge network, that's trust. So trust is about saying there's a community of people here in this room, a community of people at ASQ that bring together the best of each company to not only create passion and prestige, but to create trust. Now, I know for a fact that some of you have the rebellion trigger, because I was watching you last night when I arrived at the hotel, when I checked in, and the music was booming, and so I said to the guy at check-in, I was like, what, is this a high school reunion? What kind of crazy partiers are these? And he said, oh, it's the American Society of Quality. And then I knew we were going to have a good time together. Yeah, I know. Give yourselves a round of applause for that. Now, one of the things that's very interesting about brands is that sometimes we'll pay more for a brand that we don't even necessarily like. In fact, sometimes we actively consume a product or service that we even hate. Would you like an example? Okay. Mystique trigger. Are you curious? Raise your hand if you've ever had a shot of Jägermeister. Now, it's almost everybody here. Raise your hand if you like the taste of Jägermeister. 1, 2, 3. So about 3% of the people who've tried Jägermeister actually like the taste. How is that possible? Jägermeister is the most popular brand that nobody likes. How is it that sales keep going up? Sales of Jägermeister go up 40% a year for a product nobody likes. In fact, a product that people actively hate. And it's no wonder, because imagine how awesome is this that I asked the hotel for a shot glass and this is what I got? So imagine that I am a sommelier of Jaeger. And imagine that I am giving it a, smelling the bouquet. Kerosene. Battery acid. So what Jägermeister proves is not necessarily that you should create a product that people actively dislike, but that if you have a specific trait that you're known for, that this can be an ultimate competitive advantage. That in order to be successful, you don't necessarily have to be the best in the traditional way. You can be the best by being most distinct, and the people who want that trait are going to respond to it, and they're going to want you versus other people. If you show up to a bar and they've run out of Jägermeister, thank you. If you show up to a bar and you run out of Jägermeister, what are you going to do? Order Robitussin? A round of battery acid for all my friends. So here's the deal. Building your career is not about becoming more of what people want from you. Build your career around your greatest strengths and understand that you're going to have certain weaknesses, so-called flaws, and that these flaws are actually indicative of your most defining qualities. And so when you think back over your life, the more that you can understand the way the world sees you and the more that you can hone these advantages, the more that you can succeed in your career and the more joy you can have in your career. Now, I know you're probably curious to continue learning about yourself, so you can go back into the website. We just released a huge new round of research where now your results are actually compared to the aggregate of all the people who've taken the assessment. And in real time, you can see your results. And when you go through it, it gives you action steps. And now you can print your report. We just added that functionality a couple of weeks ago. And then we describe, here are your pitfalls, your blind spots. These are your greatest advantages that you can be applying. And then there's a nice lady who tells you how to use your archetype so that you can begin to understand this a little bit better. As I've been studying this, understanding how the world sees you, I have a great piece of news. Can I share it with you? I just signed my book contract for my new book with HarperCollins. Woohoo! And the name of the book is How the World Sees You. So I look forward to being able to share it with you. Daniel Pink is one of my all-time favorite authors. Give Daniel Pink a round of applause. I love Daniel's work. Daniel, by the way, his archetype is the provocateur. The provocateur is primary rebellion, secondary mystique. Very creative, but focused and methodical. And so I love following his work. Now, Daniel describes how do you have drive, how do you use motivation, how do you use this in a workplace to increase productivity. I describe distinct value. So let's describe what it means for you to have distinct value in your workplace. Well, when we talk to leaders at organizations like AT&T and GE, including small businesses, mom and pop businesses, leaders basically, everything that they feel about their employees and why they value certain employees can be distilled down to 4 points. The first one is that the employees that add the most value are admired for a specific quality. In other words, they're not interchangeable. They're not commodity. They're not the green ticket. Their most valuable employees are the orange ticket. They have a distinct ability. They're worth more than they're being paid. So the question is not, the employer is not thinking about how much they're paying somebody. They're looking at how much return they're getting. What's the ROI of that employee? They deliver more than would be expected. So if you're only delivering what would be expected, that's just price of entry. That's not adding value, that's just showing up. And finally, people choose to work with them even if these employees are more expensive or less convenient. So think about yourself. How can you be adding more value to your client, more value to your team? Well, the way to add more value is to understand your distinct value, and your distinct value is your fascination advantage. Remember, your fascination advantage is the way in which your personality is most likely to add distinct value. And the more that you can become this, the more successful and fulfilled that you'll be in your job. So I'm the catalyst, and the catalyst, only 2.1% of you are the catalyst, and I just want to say, my people, Catalysts are outgoing, experimental, and out of the box. The greatest strength of a catalyst is their ability to see problems differently. We're not good in black and white absolutes. So we're not really good at following the rules in a very specific, structured way. And I always knew this. I always knew this about myself, that the pitfall of a catalyst, like every archetype, there's a pitfall. Pitfall of a catalyst is they can be perceived as erratic, because catalysts like to explore and expand rather than, like Daniel, and focus in on finding the best right answer. But this word erratic sort of chased me throughout my life. In fact, here's my 7th grade report card for pre-algebra. And Mrs. Stevenson writes, "There's a fine line in math between being creative and being erratic. I will continue to support Sally in using her creativity, but becoming more consistent in her work." And then she gave me a D. Now, here's what I want Mrs. Stevenson to know. I was never going to be good at pre-algebra. It didn't matter how hard she tried. It didn't matter how hard I tried. I was simply never going to be good at pre-algebra. And I'd like to propose that the same is true of you, that those times in your life when you supposedly failed were actually the strongest indicator of exactly how you were going to succeed. That those times when you supposedly did not measure up, those were actually your shining hour. Those were the times when your brain was doing exactly what it was supposed to do, what you were meant to do. That your career can be as defined by your weaknesses, because the weaknesses show you what to stop doing and what to start doing. Will somebody please call Mrs. Stevenson and tell her that? Remember, you don't learn how to be fascinating. You unlearn how to be boring. So here are those 3 parts of an introduction that I promised you. Now, I'm going to be going quickly, so I want you to stay with me, and I want you to think about this in application. First part of any successful introduction is to think of the principal person that you're talking to. This could be your team member, it could be your manager, it could be your employee, it could be a crucial client, it could be your kid when you're trying to get him to eat broccoli. What is the need that this principal person needs to solve? In other words, what's their problem? What's their pain point? They need a product and they need it shipped on time. They have a flaw in the production line and they need it fixed. What's the need? Well, part 2, step number 2, is you have an opportunity. There's a certain way that you can solve this need. And this is the rational benefits of your company. This is what's in your brochure. This is the way in which you can use your products and services to solve the need. But there's a third component to any great introduction, and that is, what is your advantage? What is your fascination advantage? The way in which you are most likely to add distinct value. And these are the 3 adjectives that are on your archetype chart. So the way that I am most likely to solve somebody's need is with the opportunity that I can, I have a book, I speak, we do training, but the advantage is that I'm outgoing, experimental, and out of the box, because I'm a catalyst. So think about your advantage, your archetype, and how you can apply this in every interaction to be more successful. When I meet people and I give them a business card, this is what my business card looks like. It's the same system we've been talking about. It's the 7 different triggers, and at the top it says, how do you fascinate? And then when I meet them, and I want to capture those first 9 seconds, I show them what I think is fascinating about them. So I could peel it off and say, I think you have power, or passion, or mystique. It's pretty cool, right? And I brought them for you, so I hope you'll come up and say hi to me afterwards. When I meet somebody, they're not going to take my business card and shove it in their pocket into a drawer and never bring it out again. They're going to take that business card and they're going to show it to people, and they're going to keep it. They're going to put it in their wallet. They're going to remember it. They're going to remember our interaction. So guess how much my business card costs? More than a nickel. It's $2. What do you think Mrs. Stevenson would say about the fact that I have a $2 business card? Well, here's what I want Mrs. Stevenson to know. My company has made over $250,000 of revenue that we can directly trace back. That we have a 2,400% return on our business cards. Because when we give it to somebody, they don't throw it away. They remember it, they think about it, they share it, they act upon it. It's the orange ticket. My business card is my orange ticket. And you can do the same thing. You can find specific ways that you interact with people That you're not just putting messages out there. You know, like for example, in your Facebook page, whether it's your personal one or your corporate one, don't just put messages out there. The world does not need another Facebook status update. The world doesn't need another tweet or another newsletter. The world wants content that's valuable. And when it comes to delivering this, your fascination advantage, your advantage is the way in which you can best deliver this value, what people really want. The ultimate technology is you and your personality. So when I was growing up, I had a severe competitive disadvantage. Can you imagine growing up with the last name Hogshead? So admit it, like when you first heard my last name, you thought it was a typo, right? People say to me, oh, it's such a funny stage name. No, it's my legal name, and it was since I was a little girl. It's my maiden name. And I remember growing up on the playground and getting beaten up for my legal name. And I would come into my mother, Mrs. Hogshead, and I remember saying, why couldn't we just have a normal last name, like Smith or Jones? And she said something to me that I'll never forget. She said, it's the thing about our name that makes it different that will one day make you love it. And it's true. The thing about you that makes you different is what makes people love you. And as soon as I got up off the therapist couch, I decided that she was right. Because when I was growing up, the real issue was not so much the Hogshead thing. Raise your hand if you've ever felt a little bit like an underdog. Raise your hand if you felt like you were competing against somebody who maybe had more stature or bigger budget, better reputation. Yeah. When I was growing up, when I was 7 years old, my sister was the #1 ranked swimmer in the world. And then she went on to win 3 gold medals and a silver in the Olympics. Remember this Nancy Hogshead, 1984, Los Angeles? Nobody applaud. And then it just got worse. Because then my brother was accepted into Harvard. So I was trying to figure out, well, what can I do? I want to fascinate my parents. What can I do? So I spent a lot of time thinking about it. Okay, I can't outswim my sister. I can't outsmart my brother. But they can't out-Sally me. And so as I was thinking this through, I specifically remember my little 7-year-old brain going, okay, I can't do athletics. I can't do academics. Those trees have been peed on. What am I going to do? So it's no surprise that I decided to go into marketing and studying what makes you distinct. To understand that you don't have to have the biggest budget. You don't have to be the biggest competitor. You can still win. And so I think I might just do a shot of Jägermeister. And so as I was growing up, I remember my mom saying to me, you know, a hogshead it's really not a bad name. I mean, a hogshead is a barrel that holds 62 gallons. So there's actually something distinguished about it. So when I turned 8, I wrote my tagline. My tagline says, a hogshead is a barrel that holds 62 gallons. So what's your last name, smartass? So here's what I want you to remember. I want you to capture those first 9 seconds. I want you to be the orange ticket. The ultimate technology is you. The greatest way that you can add value is to become more of yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sally.
Thank you.
Thank you. Another round of applause. Thank you, Sally, very much for sharing who you are and having us look inside of ourselves. Fascinating research and application. It did cause me to have some memories, flashbacks of taking the orange ticket with my children, young children, and not picking up the bag along the way. Hey, I'm excited now. We're going to have our team awards process, and I'd like to have you welcome to the stage Dr. Holly Gonzalez.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Hope Gonzalez, and I'd again like to thank you for coming to our conference and providing such excellent input and networking opportunities. So with that, thank you, Stephen, for the introduction. I'm very excited to be here, as you can probably tell, to celebrate our soon-to-be-announced award-winning teams, especially in light that this is our 10-year celebration for ITEA as a member of the ASQ brand. I will begin by announcing the recipients of the Quality Impact Storyboard Awards and ask that the recipients remain on stage. I hope that all of you have had a chance to enjoy and to vote for your favorite displays. Please hold your applause until the top vote getters come to the stage. The recipients in order are as follows. Our third place team, excuse me there, is the Process Excellence Team, Reliance Industries Limited, Hazira. Our second place winner is, you guys are so quiet, is the Bioscience Operational Excellence Team, Baxter Healthcare Corporation. Are you ready for the first place? All right. Our first place winner this year is the One Team, One Platform, Yangfang Visteon Automotive Electronics Company Limited. We now turn to the International Team Excellence Awards. This year is the first year that we've had 32 teams in the competition, 14 of which are from North America, 18 international. This is the highest number that we've had of applicants over the year. In addition, it's worth noting that we had over 300 judge applicants for 46 positions this year. I heard a wow, that's great. Over the past several years, the ITEA committee and judges have found more and more teams are competing at higher levels, resulting in a narrowing scoring window between our gold and bronze recipients. To honor this exceptional work, we introduced a new award system last year. Instead of announcing gold, silver, and bronze award recipients, we will continue to recognize demonstrated excellence at the gold, silver, or bronze level. This year, I will be announcing teams achieving the bronze or silver excellence. Now, I would like to invite Patty Trapp, the master scorekeeper, to the stage. Patty, may I have the envelope, please? Where are you? I am very proud to present to you the teams placing at the bronze level. I would ask that the recipients, once you receive the award, remain on stage. I love the suspense. This year, the 2013 bronze level recipients are Commercial Vehicles Continuous Improvement Team from Continental Guadalajara. And we're not done. The next recipient of the Bronze Level Award this year is LVSR Leak Reduction Team from Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Oshkosh Defense. Now that I can't hear in one of my ears, maybe I need a Jägermeister. The next recipient of the Bronze Level Award this year is the Valuable Engineer Team from Pruxa Real Estate Public Company Limited. I think I have a technical difficulty here. I'm missing an envelope, and I think that Patty's going to give it to me. All right, what I'd like to do now is announce our silver winners this year. This year, our silver level award recipients are Connected on Time from Telefónica de Argentina. The suspense builds. Our final team this year for the silver level recipient is QCI team from Puxa Real Estate Public Company.
What a wonderful opportunity to celebrate all the good work that was done, not only by the ones on the stage, but by all the teams. One more round of applause if you join me. And a special thanks to Hope and Patty and the many others, Hope as the chair of the committee, of making this happen. This is a lot of work. We were talking behind the stage about one day we'd like to attend the conference again. We're here, but we're not here. And I know that you spent many hours with the competition and judging and so forth, so thank you very much. Well, we've come to the end of our time on the conference, and again, we have our eyes fixed on Dallas. What I would tell you, or have you consider if you would, is that this has been a rich experience over the last many days. And I know that your family, significant others, work partners, friends, all have kept a space open for you. And so with all this great learnings that you have and wisdom, now you return, and I guess there's some stacking up of the administrative duties, the work, and some crises that have been waiting for you to arrive, and suddenly, wasn't it years ago that I went to Indianapolis and learned something? It all comes crashing in. So create some time, create some reflection time during the next week as the busy world crowds in, to push it away and say, well, what did I take away? What did I take away in terms of real knowledge? Not just, there's a lot of intellectual knowledge, but you've gained some different knowledge inside. What did I take away in terms of relationships? The people I met, the support that I got from the many friends of old and new friends, and finally, and maybe most importantly, what will I generate from this opportunity so that when I see you face-to-face in Dallas next year, you'll be filled with stories of how you took the knowledge and did something with it to impact the globe. Thank you very much for being part of this conference. Thank you. With that, I draw the official close to the conference. Thank you.
The heart is a bloom.